You walk up to an air compressor at a local gas station, grab the greasy hose, check your tires, and just set them all perfectly to 32 psi because that is what your dad taught you, what the local mechanic muttered under his breath, and what almost everyone simply accepts as the golden rule of automotive maintenance. But that arbitrary number is probably slowly destroying your expensive tires, ruining your suspension geometry, and quietly draining your fuel tank. Setting every single tire to 32 psi is an outdated cultural reflex, not actual mechanical engineering. Every modern car has a highly specific weight distribution, suspension tuning, and load capacity. Your ideal cold pressure might be 28 psi to soften the ride. Or maybe your vehicle requires a staggered setup with 36 psi in the front to support a heavy transverse engine and 30 psi in the rear. The absolute only place you should be looking for this critical number is the factory tire placard stuck inside your driver's side door jamb. When you blindly guess the pressure based on old habits, you are completely throwing away countless hours of automotive research and development. Your tires will quietly wear out on the shoulders or down the center strip thousands of miles before they should, and you will never even realize that your own good intentions caused the premature failure. Speaking of that beat-up gas station air compressor, trusting the battered analog gauge attached to it is a massive mistake that almost everyone makes on a weekly basis. Those public machines are abused relentlessly. They are dropped on the concrete, run over by heavy trucks, and left out in the freezing rain and blazing summer sun. Their internal calibration springs are completely shot. You might look at that scratched plastic dial and think you just aired your front right tire up to 35 psi, but you could easily be rolling away with 42 or 25 psi. Plus, blasting high-pressure, unconditioned air rapidly into a cold tire puts unnecessary micro-stresses on the internal steel belts and nylon cords. You need to pick up a high-quality, dedicated digital tire pressure gauge and keep it safely in your glove box at all times. It is a tiny, one-time addition to your toolkit that guarantees you actually know what is going on where the rubber meets the road, rather than placing your safety in the hands of a gas station relic that has not been calibrated since the late 90s. Now think about the last time you packed up your vehicle for a massive cross-country road trip. You had 4 adult passengers, a trunk completely stuffed with heavy luggage to the brim, and maybe even a cargo box strapped to the roof rails. Did you actually stop to adjust your tire pressure before hitting the interstate on ramp? Almost nobody does. Look closely at that door jamb sticker again the next time you get in. Most vehicles, especially sedans and crossovers, have a standard load rating and a maximum payload rating. When you add several hundred pounds of human beings and cargo to your car, the tires physically squat down under the extreme weight. This heavily alters the contact patch and generates massive, destructive amounts of friction heat at highway speeds. A tire that handles beautifully at 32 psi when you are commuting alone might absolutely require 38 or 40 psi when the suspension is fully loaded down. Running a heavy car on a standard pressure setting is exactly why you see so many shredded tire blowouts scattered across the side of the highway during long holiday weekends. The intense heat delaminates the internal structure, and at 80 miles per hour, the resulting blowout is absolutely terrifying. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, we have drivers trying to outsmart the laws of physics to save a tiny bit of gas. They look directly at the sidewall of the tire, see a warning label that says maximum pressure 50 psi, and they fill the tire all the way up to that absolute limit, incorrectly thinking it will drastically reduce rolling resistance. Yes, you might mathematically squeeze out a tiny fraction of a mile per gallon on the highway, but you are effectively turning your pneumatic tires into solid steel wagon wheels. Overinflating balloons the center of the tread outward, meaning only a very narrow strip of rubber actually touches the asphalt. Your braking distance increases drastically because you have no grip, and the ride quality becomes harsh enough to shatter your teeth over minor bumps. Even worse, every single pothole impact transfers directly into your expensive suspension components, like the struts, control arms, and bushings, instead of being safely absorbed by the flexing sidewall. You are trading a major safety hazard, terrible wet weather traction, and blown suspension parts for an unnoticeable gain at the fuel pump. Hey, if you are realizing that your daily driving habits might need a serious mechanical update, take a quick second to hit that subscribe button right now. We dive incredibly deep into the real engineering of keeping your car safe, reliable, and out of the expensive repair shop, and having you as part of our community makes a huge difference. Let us get back into the garage. Let us talk about the glowing dashboard light that gives millions of drivers a completely false sense of security. The Tire Pressure Monitoring System, or TPMS. Far too many drivers treat this little dashboard icon like a complete substitute for manual maintenance. They never actually walk around their car with a gauge, assuming the vehicle's computer will just immediately alert them if something is wrong. But here is the dangerous truth about how that system is programmed. That warning light usually only triggers when a tire drops roughly 25% below its recommended factory pressure. By the time that little yellow horseshoe illuminates on your gauge cluster, you have already been driving on a dangerously underinflated tire for weeks. You have been actively chewing up the structural integrity of the sidewall, suffering through sluggish steering response, and wasting fuel for hundreds of miles before the car even warned you. Furthermore, when you swap between summer performance wheels and dedicated winter wheel sets, you have to ensure the TPM system is properly reset and synchronized with the new sensors. Otherwise, the computer gets completely confused, leaving you with flashing warning lights and absolutely zero actual pressure monitoring. You should never use an emergency system as your primary maintenance strategy. Another habit that quietly destroys your handling dynamics is forcing the exact same air pressure into all four tires when the vehicle manufacturer explicitly engineered the car to require a staggered pressure setup. Take a moment to think about the heavy machine sitting in your engine bay. Your front axle has a massive heavy metal engine block, the transmission and the cooling system sitting right on top of it, while the rear axle might be supporting nothing but an empty trunk and a plastic bumper. Because of this drastic front-to-rear weight bias, many modern vehicles require a split setup to maintain traction. You might need 34 psi in the front tires to support the heavy powertrain, but only 30 psi in the rear to allow the lighter end of the car to grip properly. If you pump the rear tires up to 34 psi anyway, just the numbers match, the back end of your car becomes light, excessively bouncy, and highly prone to dangerous oversteer in wet driving conditions. You are essentially modifying the factory handling dynamics and the engineered slip angle of the car without even realizing it. Always match the specific front and rear numbers dictated by the engineers who built the machine. You also have to deeply respect the laws of thermodynamics, especially when the seasons violently change from summer to winter. The air molecules inside your tires expand aggressively when they get hot and shrink down when they get cold. The general rule of thumb is that for every 10-degree Fahrenheit drop in the outside ambient temperature, you lose about 1 full psi of internal tire pressure. Imagine you set your tires perfectly on a sweltering afternoon in the middle of August. By the time late November rolls around and those freezing overnight temperatures hit your driveway, you could easily be driving around with tires that are 4 or 5 psi dangerously low, even if the rubber never physically leaked a single drop of air. You cannot just set your pressures once a year and completely forget about them. You have to manually check and adjust your tires at least once a month and pay extremely special attention the morning after the first big cold snap of the year to bring those pressures back up to safe operating levels. Here is a catastrophic mistake that happens frequently when people try to do their own driveway maintenance or take their vehicle to a rushed, cheap lube shop for a routine tire rotation. Many modern high-performance tires and even advanced all-season tires are highly directional. This means they have a massive V-shaped tread pattern specifically engineered to channel heavy standing water away from the center of the tire to completely prevent hydroplaning at highway speeds. There is literally an arrow molded into the rubber sidewall pointing exactly which way the tire must roll when the car moves forward. If a careless mechanic rotates those directional tires side to side, instead of strictly moving them front to back on the same side, the tread pattern is suddenly running completely backward. Instead of acting as a water pump to push rain out, the reverse tire now acts like a shovel, scooping water directly under the center block of the tread. You will hit a minor puddle on the highway and instantly lose all steering control as the car floats on a layer of trapped water. Always walk around your car and check the rotation arrows before you leave the shop parking lot. While you are meticulously checking things around the car, pop your trunk open, lift up the floor liner, and look at the forgotten hero of your vehicle, the spare tire. Most people drive around with a compact space-saver spare tire buried under the trunk floor for 5, 7, or even 10 years without ever glancing at it once. Those small, narrow emergency tires have very little internal volume and require a massive amount of air pressure to safely support the heavy weight of a modern car, usually right around 60 psi. Because that tire sits trapped in a dark trunk experiencing extreme baking summer heat and freezing winter cold cycles, the rubber naturally permeates and loses air pressure over the years. Imagine getting a jagged, flat tire on a dark, desolate stretch of highway miles from the nearest town, jacking the car up in the rain, pulling out your spare tire and realizing it is completely flat, soft, and utterly useless. You are instantly stranded. Take 2 minutes out of your weekend every 6 months to drop an air chuck on that forgotten spare and bring it back up to a rock-solid 60 psi. It is the ultimate insurance policy that you already own. Finally, we arrive at the most common, incredibly well-intentioned mistake that almost every single driver makes at least once in their life. checking and adjusting your tire pressure right in the middle of a long road trip. You have been cruising steadily on the hot highway asphalt for 2 solid hours, you pull over at a rest stop for gas, and you decide to be highly responsible and check your tire health. The extreme friction of the road has heated up the rubber carcass, the air inside has heavily expanded, and your digital gauge suddenly shows 38 psi. Panicking that your tires are overinflated, you quickly bleed the air out until the gauge reads your familiar 32 psi. Congratulations, you just ruined your tire setup. Once you finally park the car for the night and the tires cool all the way down to the ambient outside temperature, that internal pressure will plummet down to 26 psi or even worse. You are now driving on critically underinflated tires the next morning simply because you measured them while they were burning hot. Automotive manufacturers set their pressure recommendations strictly for cold tires. That means the car has been sitting completely stationary in the shade for at least 3 hours, or driven gently for less than a single mile. Stop treating your tires like a visual afterthought that only matters when they go flat. They are the absolute only 4 points of physical contact your heavy speeding machine has with the actual road surface. Taking care of them correctly dictates your stopping distance, your evasive handling, your long-term fuel economy, and how your car actually feels through the steering wheel. If this deep mechanical breakdown changed the way you look at basic automotive maintenance, do not forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss another deep dive into keeping your ride perfect. Stay safe out there. Always check those pressures when the rubber is completely cold, and I will see you in the next one.